Well, Richard Lowe, I'm here at the Wanaka A&P show standing next to a beautiful Santa Gertrudis cow. Damien O'Connor was mighty impressed, so chose this as a location to stand beside.
Nice red colour here. We had to be here, Sarah.
Absolutely, before the cattle judging here at the Wanaka A&P show. Well, I mean, what a natural sort of segue there, Damien, into the situation of M Bovis.
Yeah, it's a pretty challenging situation, and I think for all the breeders here, and people are saying just the dairy industry, but actually it goes right across the beef and the whole livestock industry, of course. We hopefully can round this thing up and eradicate it, and it's not going to happen overnight, and there's a lot of work to be done, but we're working really, really hard to do that. And at this point, all the infections are related back to the two key farms, so as long as those connections remain in place and there are no kind of outliers, then we figure that we can eradicate.
Okay, so your words to us on the show a couple of weeks back was, I will use whatever legal powers I can to get to basically take the people to task that brought this in, and you've isolated to these two properties. I mean, it's a sad situation for them, but there's a lot of people whose livelihoods are at stake because of these two isolated properties. What is the MPI going to do when it comes to coming down on people who are not meeting the regulations?
Well, look, I mean, that's quite a big question, and if we go back to the two properties...
But it's a question that a lot of people are asking.
Absolutely, and at the moment we're focusing on rounding it up and trying to have an eradication plan. The second thing is there is work going on to try and identify how it came in, because if we don't know, then it could come in again. Even though all the pathways have been said to be low risk, that is through semen, there's still a risk, and clearly it came in somehow. We have to nail that, and if people brought it in by cutting across the regulations or not adhering to them, then there are consequences. And I'm no lawyer. In the end, there's a legal team in MPI, and there are some legal responsibilities upheld by Crown law and everyone to abide by the law at every part of the agribusiness sector. And so we'll follow through on that. I've given that assurance. But at the moment, in the meantime, actually rounding it up and trying to stamp it out or have a plan is absolutely essential.
Okay, so we're still hearing that key message coming from MPI, that eradication is still on the table. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment has just on Friday this week said that he recommends higher levels than the 5% that will be included in this is the emission trading scheme. Agriculture will be included in the emissions trading scheme. David Parker, we spoke to last week, believed that was applicable via Labour and James Shaw, but how much of an independent parliamentary commissioner advice do you take?
Look, it's an independent report. I haven't read through all the details of it. I've had a high-level briefing, and those recommendations are really important. We'll sit down. But at the moment, we have a commitment to say if we bring agriculture in, it'll be at 5% of obligations. Now, actually, there's a whole lot of work to take place, and the Interim Climate Change Commission, or the committee, will work through all of those things. How do we calculate soil carbon? How do we calculate, the carbon that's sequestered through grass, etc.? A lot of calculations around riparian planting, can we get the credits? Those will be worked through really carefully. The issue then of, how much agriculture should have to pay if it's brought in at the end of the day is, at the moment it's 5%. The Parliamentary Commission has come out with a recommendation. It's a recommendation. In the end, the politicians will make those decisions.
Okay, so we've still got a lot of science to go under the bridge. What about talking about under the bridge science when it comes to water quality? And you're working closely with the Minister for the Environment, David Parker, on the advice he's taking with regards to that?
Absolutely, and I mean, we've said that we'll have a higher standard. It must be swimmable. I think most New Zealanders and most people in the show here want swimmable rivers, and it's quite achievable. There are areas where that's not the case, and we've got to work with the farmers and in those catchments to try and improve that. Not across the whole country, and farmers have done a hell of a lot to improve what they do. Particularly in the dairy area, some of the dry stock sector. There's need for some improvement, but we'll take some time to get there, and I think David Parker said it. It's a generational shift, but we've got to have a target that is both credible and achievable, and that New Zealanders feel comfortable with. If we had anything less than swimmable, people would be outraged, and they'd be quite right to be. And so, a lot of work to go on there, and I keep reminding other people that actually Auckland have got a lot of work to do up there to make sure that their beaches are clean. Every time there's a shower of rain up there, there are about 15 or 16 beaches that can't be swum in. That's a risk to our international reputation as much as the dairy industry impact is as well.
You keep that message going loud and clear in Wellington. I mean, for me to go from swimming in the Clutha River to not wanting to swim at the beaches in Auckland says a lot. But you, on water, obviously, that caused a lot of people to believe that Labour were driving the rural-urban divide. You've done a survey to say that that divide doesn't exist as much as everybody's making it out to be.
Correct. I mean, the survey said that there's the same level of understanding from urban to rural as rural to urban. We generally have a pretty good appreciation of what happens in one another's patches, but there was a slight decline in the general level of, support for farmers across the board, and that's a concern. And I guess that's motivated by a whole lot of things. It's actually happening internationally, and what you'll see is that I was at a conference in Berlin where livestock production was the focus, and all the ministers there and officials were saying, how do we counter what is a growing kind of anti-movement again on the basis of animal welfare standards that they don't believe are correct, environmental standards, emissions, all of those things. We've got to get on the front foot. And I think if you look around at the Wanaka show and if you look at these animals and the life that they have, in the systems that we have in New Zealand farming, very hard to criticise it, but we're not good at getting that story out there.
Okay, lastly, we have the National Rodeo Finals here in Wanaka. Damien, are you sitting very closely on this in regards to the government not enforcing a ban?
Absolutely. I mean, animal welfare is my colleague, Meta Whaitiri, is responsible for that. Of course, I have an oversight as the Minister. I've come out publicly before and said I support Rodeos. What we've got to do is just make sure we adhere to the standards that have been laid down, that there's no abuse of animals. If you look at a rugby game, there's a bit of bruising and a few injuries go on there as well. Look, it's not perfect, but in my view, we should be able to continue to have Rodeos in this country, and we have to do it in an ethical way and make sure that we uphold good animal welfare standards.
Thank you so much, Damien O'Connor. I'm a bit concerned the longer I keep you, the more your partner's going to shop. So you make sure you go and find her and enjoy the rest of this beautiful Wanaka AMP show.
Look, this is amazing. First time I've been here, 40,000 people come. These are the opportunities where you can kind of educate one another, urban to rural and rural to urban. Lots of stuff to do here, so I'll really enjoy it.
Radio Live Rural Exchange.